legion of fans.
You look at pictures of wrestlers before the mid to late 80s, they don't look like bodybuilders. They look like your unemployed uncle sitting on the couch. That's what they look like. They're not jacked up guys. But now there's an expectation among fans that a wrestler has to look a certain way.
As the wrestlers grew, so did the whispers of illegal steroid use. Those whispers turned into headlines when McMahon went on trial in 1994, charged by the federal government with distributing steroids to his wrestlers. The government star witness? McMahon's own, Hulk Hogan. Perhaps the most name in all of wrestling. Hogan, whose real name is Terry Bollea, admitted under oath that he had used steroids. He estimated as many as 80% of McMahon's wrestlers were using steroids.
Terry!
Hogan also testified McMahon knew his wrestlers were on the juice and said that McMahon had ordered steroids for his own use. Despite such damning testimony, McMahon was acquitted, but the trial did lead him to admit to steroid use. The long investigation had already led to him announcing an expansion of the drug testing policy for his wrestlers. McMahon tried to assure fans and critics he was serious, saying, "It should come as no surprise to you that the WWF has one of the most comprehensive drug testing education and rehabilitation programs in all of sports." The trial, the scrutiny, and defections to McMahon's biggest rival, the WCW, World Championship Wrestling, led to a downturn in McMahon's fortunes. Eric Bischoff ran WCW for McMahon's arch nemesis, Ted Turner, who at the time also owned CNN.
WCW really dominated the sports entertainment category from probably about 1996 through effectively the first part or the middle of 1998. We were still very, very competitive. If not number one, we're close to it.
The WCW and the WWF battled throughout the 90s, and both Turner and McMahon's organizations were dogged by allegations of however, who eventually won out. He bought the WCW in 2001, rolled it into his entertainment empire, and became the final word.
Yeah, the WWE has, they're the last man standing in the world of professional wrestling.
Vince McMahon now lorded over all of wrestling, its profits and its pitfalls.
Steroids, human growth hormones, and the quest for bigger people in this industry. You like big guys, right?
Well, again, I take exception to the fact that, our locker room now in terms of weight as far as big guys are concerned is lighter than it's ever been in history. There's an expression in our business that here's where you make your money. It's your face. It's what you do with it.
McMahon protests, but there's no denying the massive, chiseled, almost unbelievable physiques of many wrestlers, and McMahon's eagerness to promote this look. Irv Muchnick, nephew of legendary wrestling promoter Sam Muchnick, is the author of Wrestling Babylon.
Wrestlers see what works for other wrestlers and they copy it. There are only a handful of really top slots where you make huge money. So much money that you can really take care of your family and really take care of your health and really prepare for your retirement.
Still, the debate over steroids and its impact on who gets to the top divides the wrestling community.
It's pretty obvious. You can sit down and watch the show and at least decide to at least a percentage of who's on and who's not.
Former WWE champ Chris Jericho says you can wrestle and not be pumped up.
I think wrestling is a very stereotypical image that it's all the big, huge behemoths and Neanderthals that really make the big cash and really make it big. And hey, there are a lot of huge guys that make it, but there's other guys that aren't as huge that actually had to go and learn how to be a good wrestler to make it.
Big, small, in between. Today, wrestlers may be split on what it takes to make it, but there's only one man who decides who wins and who loses: Vince McMahon. Coming up,
Is the WWE steroid-free, drug-free?
I'm Rain.
A 15-year-old standing in the Rocky Mountains. He started lifting weights at the age of about 13 in the basement, and he would not go out. If the guys called and said, come on out and hang out, he'd say, no, gotta lift my weights.
even at age 13, Chris Benoit already knew what he wanted to be.
It was really a passion, and he wanted to be a professional wrestler.
Michael Benoit did not share that passion, but he loved his son. The weights were a present for Chris.
I dread the time that I even bought the weight set. You look back in your life and look at the mistakes you've made. That was the biggest mistake I ever made.
Young Benoit's passion turned to obsession. He grew stronger, bigger, and on weekends, he would convince his father to let him drive the 3 hours from his home in Edmonton, Alberta, to Calgary, the very heart of Canada's wrestling empire.
He really thought a fellow by the name of the Dynamite Kid, that became his idol, and really his wrestling style, he really followed the Dynamite Kid.
Looking back, Mike Benoit believes allowing Chris to idolize the Dynamite Kid was an even bigger mistake.
It started with the verbal abuse and, putting me down in front of other people.
Michelle Smadu was just a teenager when she met and fell in love with Tom Billington, the Dynamite Kid. They married, had a child, and soon after, Michelle says the Dynamite Kid began to explode.
He certainly wasn't the guy you fell in love with.
No. He was the gentleman that kicked out his wife and 3-week-old baby.
And do you blame it all on the steroids?
Yes.
Tom Billington came to Canada from Manchester, England to become a pro wrestler. Like Chris Benoit, Billington was a small man in a big man's ring.
For the first time, they were allowing a smaller person to come in and take those top spots. The bigger he got, the more fame he gained, the more in demand he was.
From Canada, the Dynamite Kid moved up to McMahon's WWF. He became one half of the British Bulldog tag team, but behind the scenes, he was crumbling.
The steroids started, the drug use, prescription drugs, because of the injuries, and which also starts with the alcohol.
Michelle says at home, the kid was out of control. At one time, dragging her by the hair, holding a gun to her face.
It became so bad that I just wanted to get out. And the way I was going to get out was I put my 2 children on the bed, the master bed, Bronwyn and Merrick. And Tom had a lot of guns, so I went to get his gun. And I wanted to shoot Bronwyn and Merrick, and then myself. And the only reason I didn't do it is because I couldn't guarantee that we would all die.
Michelle never told her husband what you have just heard. The night before this interview, she finally told her children.
I can't imagine how tough that was to tell them. Did they look at you differently?
Well, there was a lot of tears, and we didn't say anything. It was a quiet acceptance. They know that something horrible went on during the marriage.
The marriage ended in 1991 when Michelle bought her husband a one-way ticket from Canada back to Manchester, England.